Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. And this one I'll be going over the first 8 games in week 2, going over which players should and shouldn't be in your fantasy football lineups this week. As always, if you guys do have any specific start-sit questions, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to help you out and give you guys my opinions on that. The second part of this video will come out Friday morning or Saturday morning, probably Friday morning though. I'll go over the remaining 8 games, so stay tuned for those. Also, with a friendly reminder, if you have players playing in tomorrow's Bills-Dolphins game, make sure you take them out of your flex spot if you can. That way you have extra flexibility going into your actual weekend games. So yeah, I really fun doing these videos. Of course, if you guys have any questions or anything, just always let me know. And yeah, let's get into it. I think it'll be a fun week too. Starting things off with the Bills at the Dolphins. For the Bills, Josh Allen, James Cook, and Dalton Kincaid, they're all going to be in your lineups for sure. I know Kincaid had a really rough week 1 here, but I'm not scared off of it. I'm definitely putting him in my starting lineup. If you want to start a Bills wide receiver, I think it would be Keon Coleman, but I think Khalil Shakir is like a low-end flex play as well. I'd kind of prefer to sit all of them if I could. I'm not forcing any of those guys into my lineups, but totally up to you there. For the Dolphins, I would sit Tua. He has never put up a top 12 week as the starting quarterback against the Bills in his entire career. They've had a lot of games against each other. The Bills just seem to have the Dolphins' number. I don't expect that to get better this week, so I would sit Tua. Tyreek, Achane, and Waddle all need to be in your lineups here. This is assuming Devon Achane is playing. He practiced in full, it looked like, on Wednesday, so I'm expecting him to play here on Thursday. If he's out, I would think that Jeff Wilson and Jalen Wright are both low-end plays. I would sit both of them if Devon Achane does play, but if he is active, or if he isn't active, I think I would prefer Jeff Wilson just because he was already on the roster, ran well, had a good training camp. I'd prefer Wilson to Jalen Wright, to be honest, but honestly, I don't want to play either of them, really, if I can avoid it, and if Devon Achane's active, there's no way I'm doing it. Next game up here is going to be the 49ers at the Vikings. This one's pretty easy, I think, for the Niners. Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, and Jordan Mason, they should all be in your lineups. This is me assuming here that Jordan Mason will be starting again in lieu of Christian McCaffrey. If McCaffrey starts, you're playing McCaffrey, you're not playing Mason. Pretty easy there. At the quarterback, I'm not going to play Brock Purdy in this one. The Vikings defense looked pretty good last week. I know it was against the Giants, so I don't want to make too much out of that, but the Vikings defense looked decent in the back half of last year, and I also think the Niners will win this game pretty handily, so I don't want to require us here to go through and play Purdy, who's a fringe starter anyway. For the Vikings, Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson, they're going to be must starts here. Aaron Jones looked great. Jefferson's a stud. You're playing both of those guys, but I really can't imagine playing anyone else for the Vikings this week. Next, we've got the Seahawks at the Patriots. For the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker and DK Metcalf are probably the only Seahawks worth starting here. I know Lockett had a good game last week, but JSN was not involved. Lockett, I think you probably saw, it's not necessarily his ceiling because he could always score a touchdown here, but like 6 for 75 is a best case here. I don't think he'll do a lot of that in the game. That should be pretty low scoring against New England. I would prefer to just play the top tier options in this game if I could. So I'd sit all the receivers and tight ends for Seattle other than DK, and even DK could have an injury here, or could just struggle. Kenneth Walker obviously banged up with that abdomen injury. Keep an eye on that. If he sits, Kenneth Walker or Charbonnet would be a decent starting option as well. For the Patriots, I think Ramondre is the only guy I'm considering starting here. You're definitely starting him, but at the receiver position, nobody really stood out. They didn't pass very effectively, and the Seahawks defense looked really good last week. So it's Ramondre and then nobody else for me on the Patriots side of the ball. Next, we've got the Giants at the Commanders here. For the Giants, I think Malik Nabers should be in your lineup. He looked really good last week. I know, obviously, the Giants as a whole were horrendous, and there's no reason to be super excited about them long-term this season. But Malik Nabers, he's elite. You're going to play him for sure. Devin Singletary, the workload was really promising, actually, last week, so I think you can use him as a low-end RB2 option against a bad Commanders defense. Never going to win you your week, but he'll have enough volume to be reasonably okay, so you can certainly play Singletary if you need to. Wan'Dale Robinson, he's a desperation deep league flex if you want to. 9 targets last week was encouraging, but I don't think there's really any upside there, so I'd prefer to look elsewhere unless you're in like a 14-team league. Jaden Daniels for the Commanders should absolutely be in lineups. This Giants defense is atrocious, and then on top of that, Daniels is going to run the ball a ton. So Daniels, I would look to start him if I could. Terry McLaurin, I would also give another role. I know last week was brutal, but it is a really great matchup against the Giants defense. I think McLaurin should get another shot at our starting lineups here. Then Brian Robinson, solid start as well. The Giants just gave it up to Aaron Jones last week. I think Brian Robinson could have a good game as well this week. Next, we've got the Chargers at the Panthers here. Starting things off with the Chargers, I think that J.K. Dobbins and Ladd McConkey are really the only starting options here. Ladd McConkey, I would prefer to sit just because we do expect the Chargers to win this game pretty handily. Obviously, the Panthers are not a good football team. You don't lose 47-10 in week 1 just on accident. You're not a good team if you do that. And I think it's fair to say the Chargers will win this game pretty handily. It does make Gus Edwards a desperation deep league play just because they could run the ball 40 times in this game. If that happened, Edwards would probably find his way into the end zone. So you could play him if you need to, but I'd obviously prefer Dobbins over Edwards. And then for the Panthers, Deontay Johnson is the only Panther I would really consider starting. I don't like it at all. Obviously, not great. He did lead the team in target share before he got pulled because they pulled all the starters last week. So I think Deontay is still the one in this offense here, but it's just not a lot of an offense in general. So I'd prefer to sit every Panther if I can, but if you need to, Deontay's the only one I would even really look at. Next, we got the Saints at the Cowboys. For the Saints, Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave, they're both going to be in your lineups here. Kamara looked fantastic last week, and then Chris Olave, I know it was a bust of week 1, but they didn't really need to throw the ball very much. This should be a more competitive game. They will have to put up some points if they want to beat the Cowboys, so Olave will be much more involved in the game plan here. Rashid Shaheed, he's a decent flex option as well. Obviously, you need him to hit on that big play. He's always got an opportunity to do that, so you can play him, but obviously I understand the floor is 0 for Shaheed here. For the Cowboys, CD and Dak, they're both going to be in your lineups. I prefer Dak's not a must start. You could look elsewhere if you have a better streaming option, but I doubt you do. You're probably starting him, and then obviously there's no way you're looking elsewhere than CD. Brandon Cooks, he's a fringe starting option if you want to, especially with Jake Ferguson down. You could do worse, so Brandon Cooks is an option here. Zeke, also a fringe starting option. The Saints defense looked really good last week. Obviously, a lot of that was probably just because the Panthers are not good on offense. So I think Zeke's got a good shot to score a touchdown again. He is the clear lead in Dallas right now, so you can play him as like a low-end RB2, but I would probably look to go elsewhere if you can. Next, we've got the Colts at the Packers. For the Colts, I think they'll win this game pretty easily. Obviously, the Packers with Malik Willis at quarterback, not going to be a good performance for the Packers offense in general, so I think the Colts should win this one pretty handily. The Packers just gave up a monster performance to Saquon Barkley. I think JT is going to be a monster in this one, so you're definitely playing him. Anthony Richardson, he's going to be in your lineup as well. He's obviously a stud. We saw what he can do last week. And then Michael Pittman, I would still start him here. Had a 40% target share last week. I know it didn't turn into a lot because the Colts just didn't run a lot of plays, but they should throw the ball a little bit more this week. Hopefully they complete more than 9 passes. I think Pittman's still going to be in your lineup here, although he's like a low-end wide receiver too. For the Packers, Josh Jacobs, he's an RB2. He's just a volume-dependent play. You're hoping he catches a couple dump downs, maybe falls into the end zone, but I wouldn't expect a lot out of Josh Jacobs this week. And then Jaden Reed, he's a flex option. I would prefer to sit him if I could, but they will manufacture some touches for him, so he could be okay. I just don't really see a lot of upside for the Packers as long as Malik Willis is starting for them. And then next year, we've got the Browns at the Jaguars. For the Browns, Jerome Ford, he's a low-end RB2. He got pretty much all the work for the Browns last week, so I think he's a solid volume-dependent RB2 option for us, really going forward until Nick Chubb comes back. Outside of that, for the Browns, Amari Cooper, he's a flex option. I don't love it. David Njoku was declared out. Jerry Jeudy left last game with an injury. Cooper's the guy. He did have 9 targets last week, so I think you can still play him. Hopefully, Deshaun Watson plays a little bit better. Hopefully, a lot of it was just that the Cowboys' defense is legit, so you're still probably starting Cooper, but if you have better options, I have no problem looking elsewhere. And I would sit everyone else. You're not going to look at Jordan Akins or Watson or any of that. It's just Ford and Cooper for the Browns here. For the Jaguars, Travis Etienne and Evan Ingram, they're going to be in your lineups. Keep an eye on Tank Bigsby's usage again. I think it could be a little bit more of a split than we were hoping coming into the season. Evan Ingram, I know, had a rough week 1 here, but you're just going to put him back into your lineup. Every tight end sucked last week. Then at the right wide receiver position, I would play Brian Thomas over any other wide receiver here. He looked great in week 1, and I think he's probably just going to trend upward the entire rest of the season. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 for the Jaguars over the course of the year. I would play Brian Thomas over any other one, but he's still like a low-end wide receiver 3 for me this week, so you don't have to play him if you have better options. So that'll do it for part 1 of the starts and sits this week. Stay tuned for part 2 here. I'll go over the remaining 8 games. Of course, as always, if you guys do have any additional start-sit questions, anything specific, let me know in the comments. I'll make sure I can give you guys my opinions on that, especially if you want a little bit of advice before Thursday Night Football. So I'll be happy to help you guys out there. There will be a live stream Sunday morning as well where I'll go over last-minute injury updates, last-second start-sit questions. So make sure you tune into that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the future content. I'll be here all year long to help you guys win your league. And if you made it this far in the video, please do give it a thumbs up as well. It really helps me out. So yeah, appreciate you guys. Quick video here. We'll keep rolling with more to come. So yeah, catch you guys later. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.